Hi, Ben. This is Amina from Baltimore. How are you
I'm
doing?
doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. So I've been starting to think about or see Steve Bannon as Dick Cheney 2.0, and I'm wondering your thoughts on what we have to learn by revisiting the Bush years. What we can learn about
Yeah.
what this administration is planning to do. Thanks
Okay.
for taking my call.
Hey, my pleasure. My pleasure. That's in a weird way that's a tough question because it feels like they're the same, but in a lot of ways I don't think that they're the same. But let's discuss how they are the same first, and then we'll discuss how they're not the same. So Dick Cheney was the brains behind the operation. Likewise, I believe firmly that Steve Bannon is the brain behind the operation. I don't think Donald Trump has the wherewithal to understand the three branches of government. So to that end, you have the lesser intelligence as serving as president, and you have the greater intelligence relative to the lesser intelligence serving in a secondary role. That's number one. Number two, they have no direction. George W. Bush really didn't have a direction outside of his compassionate conservatism. Donald Trump has no direction outside of his ego. And so the people around them, particularly Bannon slash Cheney, they're the ones who are driving an agenda, because without them, these two guys would not have had anything. They could not have contributed anything. Here's where they're different, and it is different in a very significant way. George W. Bush, though a bumbling idiot, he was more malleable and he was easily molded by Dick Cheney's agenda. Donald Trump is just an asshole. Donald Trump is there for his ego and his ego alone. Donald Trump is not going to let someone have a greater shine than him. Donald Trump is not going to let somebody be on his team who feels like they're smarter than him. So even if they are smarter than him, they're going to have to pretend and behave as though they're subservient to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is a megalomaniac and he has to have everyone around him kiss his ring, essentially. And so Steve Bannon is in a far more submissive role to Donald Trump than Dick Cheney was. And this is where it's important. Dick Cheney could assert his opinion and his authority because George W. Bush was there to listen. And George W. Bush needed him, and he knew that he needed him. Donald Trump wants Steve Bannon and the rest of them to kiss his feet. Donald Trump will put them off of Air Force One whenever he gets a mood swing, a temper tantrum. So that's a real significant difference, because it puts Steve Bannon in a much more vulnerable position, where if the consensus around the nation could become that Steve Bannon is in charge, Donald Trump would have no parts of that. Donald Trump would eventually get rid of Steve Bannon, or he would continually verbally berate him, undermine him, undercut him, cut him off at the knees, just so that Steve Bannon understands that his role in the administration is to be Trump's subservient muse. That's the nicest thing I can say about it. What can we learn from it in general? Divide and conquer. That's basically it. We couldn't really divide Cheney because he was the vice president. You can't just fire the vice president, right? But you can put a division between Trump and Bannon. And we've seen it already. And I think that the media could play a far more significant role in that. Here's the problem, though. To what end, right? Because Steve Bannon may be the brains and may have an agenda, but Donald Trump is still surrounded by Reince Priebus and Mike Pence. Mike Pence, who has probably the far more nefarious agenda than anyone else because of his religious dogma, right? Because of his religious extremism. We in the news today, they're taking questions about the LGBTQ community off of the upcoming census, right? I guarantee you, this has everything to do with Mike Pence and his religious zealotry. And because of that, it's like, even if you got rid of Steve Bannon, to what end, though, right? Because we're not going to really get rid of this neoconservative, ultra religious conservative dogma that surrounds Donald Trump. Ultimately, Donald Trump has, I mean, the only thing you can really hope for as a win is for Donald Trump to really get tired of his party, to get tired of the people around him, and for him to completely abandon them in hopes that he can get some victories with other voices, other people, maybe some Democrats or maybe whoever. I don't know. But as it stands, Donald Trump being driven by his ego, it feels as though you can put a division between he and Steve Bannon, but realistically, he's going to be surrounded by plenty of sycophants, plenty of zealots that are going to take our country to hell and back again.